If you have a passion or a cause or any situation where you want to stand up for yourself and what you stand for in the world, it can be met sometimes with hostility and resistance. Well, in this episode, I want to share with you some stories from Colby Tootoosis from the Cree Nation, who not only stood his ground in the face of political corruption, but also helped a family divided by gang affiliations to find peace, freedom, and realisation with MPA. This episode, I hope, will inspire you to what's possible for you in any kind of hostile or divided situation that you find yourself in. So let's do this, folks. Over to you, Kim. Hit it.
Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the MPA process, Joel Young.
Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. We are at episode number 76, which means you can go ahead and find the show notes at www.beabrillianthuman.com/76. And all of the back catalogue are there. You just need to know the number of the episode or just go searching on the site. And if you do the number of an episode, you can just put that number after the slash and you can get to the show notes for that particular show. So how are you doing? We're in March here in the UK. Our clocks are going back in a couple of weeks. I know they've gone back already over there across the pond, as we say here in the States and in Canada. Spring is in the air. The birds are singing and nesting and all that wonderful stuff. And again, here in the UK, we're looking at starting to gently soften the lockdown. And a slight vision of the possibility of coming back into some semblance of a post-COVID situation. So the sun's out, feeling pretty good. Today, as I just said in the intro, I'm excited to share this with you. It's an interview I did with Colby Tootoosis, a friend of mine over in Saskatchewan and the Cree Nation, who's worked with MPA and done some truly amazing work out there. And again, I want this to be an offering to you because there's all kinds of ways that we meet hostility and resistance in our life. And sometimes it's great to hear inspiring stories so that we know that, that what can seem like a mountain to climb or that we're alone is something that we can hear another story and go, do you know what? I've got this. I can do this. And certainly with the help of MPA, which is what Colby's talking about in terms of how he's used that to really assist himself, within himself, and also situations with divided families in very strong situations to make a difference and to move things forward and bring more peace and harmony. So if you're new here, then welcome to the show. I love that you're here. Welcome back to the regulars. I love that you spend this time with me, or let me spend this time with you, really. And today, again, we're talking about MPA. If you're new to the show, then MPA stands for non-personal awareness. Colby refers to it a lot as non-personal awareness. And it's a simple 6-line spoken word process is how most people meet it. That's certainly the entry point, and you can get hold of that for absolutely nothing, for free. Either there's a link on the beabrillianthuman.com website, and all the different episode notes will have a link there, so you can go ahead and download that, try it out for yourself. Beyond the essence of not taking things personally and making a difference in people's lives, I'd say that the thing that it brings to you more than anything else is a sense of having that absence of resistance. Colby actually talks about it in this interview quite beautifully, about getting a sense of sometimes it's a simple realization that things are not personal, or you don't have to take on the burden or the responsibility, is a truly powerful epiphany. So, yeah, I'm going to hand you over to this interview. I hope you enjoy it. And I'll just pop back and round it up at the end. I hope you enjoy this. Let's go over and meet Colby. So welcome to Colby. I wanted to make a quick recording and introduce you to Colby. We were chatting last week. We're friends and have known each other for quite a few years now. But I didn't realise how much Colby was using MPA, and he shared some amazing stories that I thought we had to capture on camera so people can be inspired by what's possible. So Colby, start off with, who you are and, give us a sense of what you're about in the world.
All right. Well, my name is Colby Tootoosis. I'm from Palmaker, Cree Nation. And, I've been working with our communities, indigenous communities, working with children and young people, and really striving towards liberation within myself and within, my communities and families, particularly children. Like, I've always loved to work with children. And so that has included me looking for tools out there in the world that can benefit that cause.
Fabulous. Yeah. So the couple of things that you told me about, and thank you for being willing to come and share them. The first thing that you told me about was how you were in office within your community, and there were some things that were going on there, and how you used MPA to help yourself kind of stay centered during that time. So I want you to sort of share with people how you used it, what you were experiencing that you felt it could help with, and how it helped you, how it transformed your experience.
Well, it was an interesting experience. It was definitely an experience that I say was nutrients for my growth, because it was very challenging. And being in politics is not something that I pursue. It's not something that I want. However, I ended up, being nominated and elected as an elected official for my community. And the reality is a lot of our indigenous communities out here are struggling from colonialism, the effects of colonialism, and the continued implications of colonial systems that are at play. And there are dynamics of oppression, both systemically and amongst different races. So there's like a strong racism here, and amongst our communities, amongst neighboring communities. And the result of that has really stressed our governance systems and our family dynamics within our communities. And as a result of that, a lot of our communities are experiencing corruption, both economically and politically. And so when I was elected into this position, I made it a commitment within myself to bring back the dignity, the values, and morals of who we are as Indigenous peoples and as human beings. So it was really going up against a system that was stressed to the max, and it was very challenging. And, when we're working in stress systems, there's individuals who have benefited from the existence of those stress systems. And so whenever me personally, I've, in terms of standing my ground and bringing alternatives, there would be people who would rationalize and defend and even sabotage what I was intending to do. And it would bring up so much stress within myself. It would bring up anger, it'd bring all kinds of emotional turmoil within myself. And this was when I called upon non-personal awareness, the MPA. And there were times where I would have to do this. Well, I would do it every day. And whenever we'd have a meeting and the conversation wasn't going anywhere, we were basically spinning our wheels in our conversations, and there were times where I couldn't do nothing, and it would bring up a lot of my ego, a lot of my my own blocks within myself, and so I would do emotional work to support that and to clear that up. But in the meantime, instead of being in a reactionary state at those tables or in space, I would rely on MPA, man, and it would really allow this clarity to be here, so that I can speak from clarity, speak from truth, and also have like an impacting connection with those that I was in a meeting with, or I was connecting with.
That's a really interesting point, because I often say that people think, oh, if you're not taking things personally, are you detaching? But my experience has been that actually when you do the MPA process, it kind of drops your walls, and you find actually communication and connection can become stronger. So it's kind of a paradox, or it's different to what you think when you think, oh, it's not personal. You've got that kind of gangster, it's not personal, I just shoot him kind of thing. But actually, in the reality, when you don't take the thing so personally, you can be more centered in yourself and more connected. So I'm kind of curious, did you take yourself out of the room and do the MPA process, or did you find you did it internally, or how did that work in those meetings?
Well, there were times where I did have to leave the space, and there was times where I just didn't go. I didn't show up, but I did have to show up. But there was in the story would be one afternoon I didn't go into the office. I actually stayed home, and my late dad, we were watching soccer. Football, they call it football over there. So he really loved football. He really loved soccer. And so I was sitting there and I was watching soccer with him. He's like, why aren't you going to work? And I was like, because if I go to work, I'm going to punch someone. And he was all like, okay. And we sat there and watched soccer and football, because it got to the point where it's like, there's absolutely nothing I can do. Like there's very little impact, and the individuals that I had to work with were really, really challenging to work with. So admittedly, there were times where I just didn't go, but I would do the non-personal work, and it was more like a self-care within myself in terms of being in that space. The times that I did show up, I would do it internally, right on the spot. If it meant, just noticing where we were at in our dialogue, and then checking in within myself and doing the work internally, and then bringing my awareness back into the conversation, back into the space. And you're right. It's like, it's not about detaching, or it's really about being in I don't know if hostile environment is the right way, but being in a stressed environment and willing to be vulnerable in that regardless. I've heard a lot of people say to me, when you're in politics, you got to develop this thick skin. And to me, it's the opposite. If I want to make long-lasting change and really disrupt systems that need to be disrupting, and having the flexibility to maneuver in that, vulnerability is vital. And MPA has allowed me to be in a space of freedom, a space of tenderness and peace, in a space of hostility, and not be bothered by it. It would be like being internally untouchable, just from the experience.
I love that. I love that you've shared that. I think that can really help people to understand the beingness that it can bring to you, and that's it, in a hostile environment, rather than getting caught up. Because I think when you create a hard shell, which is most people approach, you're not able then to have that connection. And I do think that that vulnerability, again, the idea of vulnerability can be scary, but I often liken it to the sea anemone that's like on the rocks with the waves are pounding it and pounding it and pounding it. And it's fine because it's porous and it just lets things through. And I think that's one of the great gifts of MPA. It's like, yes, you're dropping your armor. Yes, you're dropping those things. But what would tear you from the rocks is if you held on to stuff on the way through. And so in the not taking it personally, you're not holding on. It's just, it can wash through and you can say, and here I still am. And I can have my strong perspectives, it doesn't make me weak. I can have my very strong perspectives, but I'm not in reaction to, like you say, you're not in defense of, and you know when to step away so you don't punch someone. And you can command that and don't have that kind of taking other people's responses to that personally. So then you can be much more effective. So I love that you used it in that way to really benefit your how you could meet your vision and your goals in a very hostile environment. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's definitely given me leverage to not be attached to an outcome, like not to control for an outcome. And so like when I'm in non-personal awareness and I'm more in a proactive place, I'm not striving to control for the outcome. And there's this freedom in this way of being in a space or in an environment. I don't know. There's just like this fluidity, this natural fluidity, this effortlessness that's revealed in that, and it's basically MPA has helped me to ride that, to be in that within myself, and how that's connected to everything. It's really been affirming to truth within my own experience.
Brilliant.
That makes sense.
It does make absolute sense. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, and I'd also want to say in that, it comes to me just to really honor that you've done that you've stepped up in the face of tremendous opposition, and found the tools that you need to support you. And as you said, self-care is so important in those environments. And you're doing this amazing work. And that's not the only work that you're doing, because you're doing work, as you say, with kids and with families. And the other thing I wanted to really get you to share, because you told me the story last week, is how you worked, if I recall what you said, kind of with a street gang feud. Is that what I heard?
Oh, well, I was working with a family. I worked with a family. Well, I work with a lot of families, and there are issues of gangs within our communities, and like with a lot of communities around the world. And the thing though is, there was a particular family I worked with where the family was divided by gang associations, and what actually happened was there was a murder within the family, and a lot of fingers were being pointed at towards gang affiliations. It was also pointed at towards other histories within the dynamics of that family, and then they actually invited me. They invited me to go and work with the family. Like, there was a grandmother. The grandmother's son was murdered by her nephew. And she was, in her kindness, we call our grandmothers kukums, and they're like these matriarchs. They're like this presence of unconditional love within our families. And, in meeting her, I really got to see and experience how powerful and profound that is and can be within, crisis in a family, because she had the intention of bringing her family together for there to be healing, for there to be wellness again. She wanted to strengthen her family. And it was really addressing these issues, these histories head on. And so when they invited me to come in and work with them, I was there, I was open, and we worked with them for 3 days. We did a lot of introductory stuff into emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, how emotions affect our behaviors, drive our behaviors, and some conflict resolution and problem solving. And then what happened was, during the conversations, the issue around taking things personally came up. And so that's where I reference, non-personal awareness, to say, okay, well, let's try this. And we actually did a non-personal awareness process, with the whole family. And, and there was this instant realization, this instant freedom, this instant peace, this instant calmness. And, and there was these men who, in the early stages, just seemed like closed off from, their emotions. And afterwards, man, there was like this vulnerability, where you see it in the eyes, where it's like, I didn't know I didn't know it was that simple, where I don't have to carry this, where this doesn't have to be carried. And and it was very profound, and and the feedback was really affirming of how significant MPA is. Yeah, it was an honor to work with that family.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it when you speak it. I get goosebumps. It's one of those. It's a territory that I imagine most people would be afraid to go and work in, and it's one of those things where often the tools that we have in the sort of that we get used to in the personal development and spiritual realm, and generally the demographic is women of a certain age, and then you get like these kind of street gang affiliated or just guys that are just there in the real world. And to hear, and I often say that MPA is man friendly, teenage friendly, and old lady friendly, because there are commonly the people that just don't want to do that stuff, but again, you paint the picture beautifully of how in the simplicity of it, and it's a non-threatening start point. It doesn't require them to necessarily be emotional or emotive. They get to have their own expression and meet it with the non-personal perspective. And from there, just the way you paint it, and I've seen it myself, it's like just to have them crack open, connect, and be willing to share their vulnerability. And you said it like just to I don't have to carry that burden. I've seen it with people. I sometimes call it the O factor, when people will do a process and they go, oh. And it's like something that's been so big and got out of hand and created so much drama and stress. Let's go, oh, right. And that's it. Sober, simple, done. And the relief, of course, that comes from it. So again, I so admire you, Colby, for the work that you do, and that you just go in there and you have such a vision, from when we first met all those years ago, and you standing on stage and sharing about you'd come over to the UK and you had this vision of transforming and making a difference within your community there in Saskatchewan, and I've just watched you sort of through Facebook, and we sort of recently reconnected, and just you're right there doing the work and making a difference. And I love that MPA is a part of that, the MPA is a part of that, and it's making a difference. So if you were to sort of sum up in kind of a single sentence, what you feel from your experience is the benefit of using MPA, and why someone might choose to sort of get more involved in that, what would you say that would be?
Well, what comes to mind, in summing up, my experience with non-personal awareness is the revealing of greatness and the revealing of peace, especially in relationships and in families. I can say that NPA has really mended and strengthened my relationship with my partner, so that we're in a space to consciously and intentionally raise our daughter in a way that supports whatever she's bringing to the world. And that to me, that's priceless. That's profound. It's a blessing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing that. I do hope that it inspires people to give it a whirl with MPA and to bring it into their lives. And if not that, then even just that this is possible. There are many tools that you can use, and I'm always keen to say that MPA is a way, not the way. It has its unique power, its special magic, but more than anything else, I hope that people, and this is why I wanted to get you on, can be really inspired by the work that you're doing, and know that you can go into these very, as you say, hostile, difficult environments and really make a difference in the world. So, all power to you. And thanks so much for sharing, Colby.
Thanks, Joel.
So I hope that Colby's stories inspired you again to what's possible. If you're interested in finding out more about MPA, you can go to joelyoungmpa.com. And also, if you're interested in particular working with other people with it, then go and take a look at the mpaacademy.com. And there you'll find the courses where I can teach you to work with other people in different ways. So, and just to give you an outline of that, you can download it for free, as I said at the top of the show. Also, then I would recommend, if you really want to get into it, either to help yourself in particular, the first step really is to get it in your system. And that's basic training that we offer there. And then if you want to start working with other people, or if you just really want to do self-development but want to go really deep with that, then you want to look at going forward to do the advanced training program. And then pretty soon this year, we got coming out MPA Mastery, which is if you want to be a certified practitioner of MPA, then that's the way to go. But you need to make sure you've done advanced training first. So go and check that out at the mpaacademy.com. Again, you'll find links to those things all via joelyoungmpa.com, if that's easier to remember or to get to. Otherwise, if you like the show, if you like what you hear, then please go ahead and go and tell someone about it. Hey, there's this great podcast called Be a Brilliant Human with Joel Young, and get them to go on to all the usual platforms for podcasts, certainly Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, all those kind of things. And they can have a listen, or of course go to the show notes to send them to www.beabrillianthuman.com. I hope you're having a fantastic beginning of spring. I'll send you a big hug, and I will look forward to seeing you next time you let me in your ears. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. And all that remains is to cue the moo.